Okay, we are going to try and do some diagnostic testing on my 2000 Ford F-250 with a 5.4 liter engine. The air conditioning has been acting oddly. The compressor kicks on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. So we're going to try and see what is the problem here. This gauge set, you have a red and a blue. Red is high pressure, blue is low pressure. This yellow line in the center is how you evacuate or charge the system. And if you're not evacuating or charging the system, you want to connect your yellow hose up here just to close the system so you don't lose coolant into the atmosphere. And so what we're going to do is these are clipped onto just holders, fittings that are on the side here to just hold the valve. And the valve has a snap ring here. You want to make sure that the valve is closed when you attach it. So let's close the valve and pull up the snap ring and press down, and that is on. Do the same with the blue here. Pull that off. Come over here to the accumulator. There's the low side connection. Pull up on the ring. Press down. And the ring locks into position. Okay, now we're going to open the valves. And you hear that pressure go. Alright, so I can hear a little bit of a leak in the valve here, and it was where the blue hose attaches to this valve. I just had to reseal or reset the seal in there, loosened it up and tightened it back down, and that fixed the leak issue. And you have to have a sealed system, otherwise you're not going to be able to test accurately. Okay, so we have attached that and then opened this, and when you're opening this, it is screwing down onto the Schrader valve. So when you do screw down, you don't want to crank it down. You just want to go down until you start hearing refrigerant going into the line. You'll hear a quick hiss. Otherwise, you don't want to damage that valve, so don't open this up too hard. Same with this one here. We're going to open this. Okay, we're not hearing anything there, but we'll just turn it down until it's just giving the resistance. All right, so we have 60 pounds of pressure on each side. So that's the ambient pressure inside the system. Let's go start the truck and see what we get. Okay, we're going to start the truck. First I got to get my key. Turn the AC to max, full cold. Turn off the radio, turn the fan up, and let's go take a look at what the gauge set says. Okay, so you can see that it's pulsing. The compressor is turning on and off about every second. So the low pressure side, the switch there is supposed to cut off at 25. Okay, now we're gonna disconnect the low pressure plug. put that where it hangs in a place I can get to it. Now I have a jumper wire here, and this is going to force the system to stay on. I'm doing this one-handed so it doesn't want to cooperate. So now we have the compressor is on. So now we've got the valve closed here, valves closed here. So now we just have pressure going up to the blue and pressure, high pressure going up on the red. So with the compressor on, the pressure, the low pressure is about 5 pounds and the high pressure is about 90 pounds stable. So that is saying that there's not much, there's a lot of blockage in either the accumulator or at the orifice tube. So you can see what happens here. We have the orifice tube is in here, and if you look at this pipe, you can see that it is frosting. And if we feel the pipes here, they're cold, but they feel, this one feels slightly cooler than this one, so we have a blockage from between here where it's warm and here where it's cold. So now I'm going to pull out this pin and you can see that frost go away very quickly. Now the compressor is disengaged. And you can see the frost disappearing. So you can see the frost is forming again. So anyway, we have a blockage here at the orifice tube, and it's also possible that the accumulator is clogged up as well because there's filtration in there. So we go back over here and we look at the gauges again, and we have about 8 pounds on the low pressure side and 80 pounds on the high pressure side. Pull the pin again. Pressure climbs. High pressure is dropped a little. Low pressure is climbing, so they're both going to equalize at about 60 pounds again. Okay, so they're going to keep going until they hit about 60 pounds. Now we're going to plug the low cutoff sensor back in. So anyway, you can see that we have some problems here. You can probably not see the compressor, but you can hear it. Okay, so we're going to kill the engine now. Okay, so we've got the engine is off and the pressure is equalizing again at about 60 pounds on both the high and the low. So that's what we're going to do today. Is we're going to put in a new receiver dryer accumulator, which is this unit. We're going to replace the orifice tube. We're going to install a new compressor, and we're going to flush out all the components. We've got some spray stuff. So, okay, let's get going on that. Okay, we are going to start taking apart the air conditioning system, and we're just going to start with removing the hose on top of the accumulator. So there is one nut holding down the hose, and it is a 13 millimeter nut. So let's crack it loose and away we go. So we've had the system purged, and now we're going to just start taking things apart, and then we will run cleaning agent through everything. So what do we got here? And that is why you wear gloves and safety glasses. So there's just a little bit of pressure release came out of there. I guess if there is refrigerant in there, it will keep on expanding a little bit at a time. So, okay, well, let me wipe things down here for a minute and get back to it. Alright, now we have done some cleanup on aisle 3. So that is a good reason why you want to wear safety glasses and gloves, because things happen. Alright, now I'm going to pull this apart here, and that is where the orifice tube is. So let's pull the clips back, and we've got our clamp off, clamp on, clamp off. I'm going to do it there, so let me get my tool here. One of these handy things, I believe it's the white one, and it's a sealed box. I'm going to have to get a knife and cut it open, so hang on. Alright, let's see if I can position this. I don't have to hold it. Okay, we have our spring clip tool, and we press it in and pull it apart. And so that pulls apart, and up inside of there is where the orifice tube is. So let's grab a pair of needle nose pliers and see if we can get this out of here. So you can see the orifice tube. There's a little tiny bit of debris, but this one is actually in pretty good shape. But it might be clogged inside the screen, because we did have a squirt come out of it. So, alright, let's give it a quick wipe and see what we get from this. So, if you look at it, you can see through the screen, so this orifice tube is actually in pretty good condition. But there's still other components inside that may not be working. Okay, so we're going to do the next step here, and I'm going to take apart the nut here, separate the evaporator, and we're going to spray cleaner through there and then blow it out with the compressed air. So, okay. We are going to loosen up the cork down on the tensioning pulley and take the belt off so that we can get the compressor out. And that's all you do there. You need an extension on a 1/2-inch socket, and there is a 1/2-inch square hole here that a socket 1/2-inch ratchet fits into. You can also get a tool made specifically for this, which is a long flat bar with a 1/2-inch socket end on it. And anyway, now we are removing the compressor, and one thing that we have done here is you have to take out the front tire just for the sake of ease of access. But you see these here two holes in the cross member right here and right here. You can get your wrench, a 9-inch, oh come on. You can get a 9mm and a 12mm socket with an extension up through those two holes, and loosen up the two bolts that hold the compressor on. And there's a third bolt on top. Right here. So I have to, of course the light isn't helping me one single bit. So there is one more bolt right here, and that's 9mm also. So we're going to pull that out, and then also this is a 9mm bolt that holds the manifold for the hoses on top of the compressor in place. So we're going to take that off too. And being that it's very difficult to hold the camera and work at the same time, I'm just going to have to do it and then show you. Okay, we have the old compressors out now. There's the new compressor. It says to stand the new compressor on end for about 3 or 5 minutes to ensure oil permeates the main front seal. So we are in the process of doing that right now. And so we were able to get to all three of the mount bolts by going under the cross member, and here's 1, 2, and hole number 3 is up here. So we were able to get to all the different holes. So that was pretty easy. Haven't had a reason to remove the inner fender well yet. That's what the instructions say to do, but who follows instructions all the way? So now we're going to flush out the condenser and these hoses. And so once again, I need both hands to be able to do it, and I'm not going to be able to record it. But first I'm going to just air blow out the oil that is in the system now, and then I will spray it with the solvent. So, alright, let's get on that. Alright, we have the compressors out. We have flushed, blown all these lines, and so now we're going to start putting things back together. That's the fun part. So, okay. Alright, so you can see here in the manual which way the orifice tube is supposed to be replaced. And it actually looks backwards from how it was removed. So I'm going to just make a little study of that for a minute. Okay, we have everything together now. We've got our vacuum pump is going. We're going to run that for about an hour. And then we'll shut off and we'll just watch this for about a half an hour and make sure it doesn't lose vacuum. We've got the new orifice tube is in this section here. This is the new accumulator dryer. We put on new O-rings here, new O-rings here, new O-rings here. Everywhere we could replace O-rings, we replaced O-rings. Then, down here, we primed the... Oh, come on. We primed the air conditioning compressor pump, and in the back you can see the manifold block that attaches the high and low side of the compressor to the compressor. So now we have the serpentine belt back on the compressor wheel, and we're gonna start putting things back together while we're waiting for the vacuum pump to do its thing. So I've got to put on the front right wheel and then put the serpentine belt back on. So that'll take a little while. Okay, so we have finished installing the new compressor, the new accumulator receiver dryer, the new orifice tube, and flushed out the system and then blown out the system with compressed air. And finally we poured 6 ounces of PAG 46 oil into the accumulator, which is here, poured it in through this hole, before the hose was put on. And we added another 3 ounces to the compressor through the suction side. Then we connected the hoses onto the compressor manifold block, or the compressor manifold block onto the compressor, and that has the suction and output hose in one unit. Then we vacuumed the system down for about an hour and a half and gave it a 1/2 hour test. There was no pressure change on the test, so we know that we have new good seals in all the fittings. So everything is working out really well. When I took the old oil out of the system, it was relatively clean. It didn't show signs of burning. It didn't show a lot of debris, but there was some metal particulate in there, and maybe a couple of chunks. So, and then the old orifice wasn't actually all that bad compared to some of the orifices that I've seen. So anyway, just a quick recap. The orifice goes into this section of pipe here, and there's a triple O-ring seal on this pipe which inserts into this enlarged section, and then you can just see these dimples in the pipe here. There's 3 dimples, and those limit how far in the orifice tube will go into the pipe. So the orifice tube goes in and then stops here. Then you put your pipe into this pipe. There's a snap ring here and then a retainer. I also replaced this here, which was more or less the thing that caused all the problems. This is the low pressure compressor cutout switch, and it was cutting out at 50 and 60 pounds, so it was causing a constant cutout of the compressor, and that's what wore down the compressor's clutch. And also because the compressor was cycling on and off so much, it was causing the compressor was starting to make some noise too. So we just changed out everything, flushed out the system, and rebuilt the whole air conditioning system, and it works very nicely now. I've been driving for a few hours, and you can see that the accumulator bottle has condensation on it, and that's because the cold refrigerant is going through there. The refrigerant is pumped from the compressor up to the condenser in front of the radiator, and then it comes back. These 2 hoses here, you can feel them, they're warm, and it's warm to this point here, and then when it sprays through the nozzle, the orifice tube, it expands rapidly and turns cold from this point on until it gets down to the compressor, where it's compressed back into a liquid state and pushed back through the system, recycling through the condenser in front of the radiator and starting the cycle all over again. So right now we have an ambient 80 pounds of pressure in the system. That's on both the high side and the low side, and that is with only the low side valve open. Or wait, no, I have both of these open. I'm going to close the high side valve now. Okay, so that closed. What that's doing is there's a pin that when you open it, it sends a rod down that depresses the Schrader valve and opens up this to flow up into the gauge here. So we have that. You can see that pressure has actually begun to drop in that gauge there, because there's no longer any connection between that gauge and the system. So now we are going to start the truck up. You can see here right now there is a thermometer in the vent, and it is reading 70 degrees right now. So we're going to kick on the engine here and run the compressor. Okay, let's go back out here and look at it. So now you can see the compressor is running and pressure is dropping down. Let's turn the high pressure gauge back on. Okay, so on the high pressure side we have right about 160 pounds, and the low pressure is at 35 pounds right now. And that's at idle. So now we'll walk back over here, and in a minute or two you'll see that these pipes are going to start sweating again. But the system is working very, very nicely right now. I'm getting about a 30 degree difference from the outside to the inside. It's about 75 degrees out right now, and the air coming out of the vent is at 46 degrees. So it's doing a pretty good job of dropping the temperature. It's about a 30 degree drop, maybe a little bit more when I'm actually driving and I have air blowing into the front of the truck and increasing the airflow over the condenser. So everything seems to have worked out really well. You can see the compressor, the low side is at 30 pounds, the high side is just over 150 pounds. So the compressor's been running, truck's been running for a couple of minutes here, and let's go see what the thermometer in the vent says. So right now it says it's at 58 degrees right now, and if you just keep an eye on it, you're going to see it keep on dropping down. So yeah, it's maybe about 55 degrees and dropping pretty quickly. So all in all, it was a pretty good thing. Good experience to change out all the compressor air conditioning components. The compressor was about $190. The orifice tube was only $2, and I actually had to go and return the tube twice because when I inspected the tubes, there was damage, cracks in the plastic of the tube, and I figured I don't want cracks in something that so much depends on that thing working properly. So I had to return it a couple of times because of problems with the tube itself. Anyway, what else have we got going? So I am pretty happy with it. Okay, so yeah, compressor about 190 bucks. Orifice tube $2. The low pressure compressor shutoff switch that goes on the accumulator was $16, and the accumulator was $40. Then I got 4 cans of solvent that has a little hose and a cone end that fits up against the pipes, and you spray that into the system, into the evaporator, condenser, and all the hoses until it flows out the other end, and then you blow that out with a compressor. So I did that twice. It took me 4 cans. Each can was $17. So a little bit pricey, but cheap insurance, because I know that the system is all nice and clean now. And what else did we have? 4 cans of refrigerant at $13 each, and 1 8-ounce bottle of PAG 46 refrigerant or compressor oil, and I think that was $16 for that. Then I also got, what else did I get? I had to buy a vacuum pump at Harbor Freight. That was $150. I got a valve set that you've seen here, and that was $50, also at Harbor Freight. And it just took a 9mm wrench, a 12mm wrench, sockets, 3/8 inch with a short 3-inch extension, and I loosened all the holes through the 3 holes that I showed you in the cross member, and then you have to loosen the tension pulley with a 1/2-inch ratchet to get the belt off the compressor so that you can slide that out. And then there's 1 plug on the compressor that you have to remove, and then also the 2 hoses that bolt to the compressor, and those just have 1 9mm bolt going into it. And then you don't want to torque everything down too much. You just want to get it nice and snug in the inch-pounds, like 30 inch-pounds of torque on it. So anyway, everything is a success. The system is working great. Very happy. It probably cost me half of what it would have cost to have a radiator or air conditioning shop do it. I actually did have one estimate at $1,500, and so it cost me right about $600 for everything. So I think I saved a pretty good amount of money by doing it myself.